welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And here we are with our spoiler-filled review of Bring Her Back.
Yes, we are. I'm sorry, I was trying to think of how we can get hanging dong in there somewhere. But I don't think it's appropriate for anybody in this film to be hanging dong. So,
all underage.
All underage. So
Sally Hawkins hangs
Sally
dong.
Hawkins hangs dong. Maybe she does, you know. This is the spoiler-filled one. So if you haven't seen Bring Her Back yet...
I mean, actually, sorry. Dead Daddy hangs dong.
Yes, actually, Dead Daddy does hang dong. Dead Daddy's dong. You do see
You
it.
see Dead Daddy dong at the start. So if that's your thing, Dead Daddy dong.
There is, yeah. The dong count is up there. You know, this has... I was about to say this. Maybe this has as many dongs as 28 years later. But I don't know if it's just one big ass dong that you see in that film.
Yeah.
I
think you see more. I think there's more dongs in that film. If you're looking for them, there's all many body parts in that dong.
But I think
to be fair, in that film, Samson's dong doesn't just count as one dong. I mean, you
seven.
can probably count that as multiple dongs.
It's 3 dongs and a trench coat. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Although I do wonder whether this falls under the same because they had the actress and the guy in there, because apparently from what I found out is that from here's a little thing to break some of your heart for 28 years later, that was not actually Samson's dong.
Oh.
It was a fake dong.
I mean, I'm assuming it was a fake dong.
I
think it was a lethal weapon.
There's a rule with kids in films, so you actually can't have them see any genitals, so you have to put covers over it. So they had to put so instead of showing them a real penis, they made a uniquely crafted, perfect, giant one.
Yes.
In order to make the boy in that film feel inadequate for the rest of his life compared to the dong of another man.
Yeah. I don't know whether that's good or bad.
And I don't know if the dead daddy dong in the floor of here would have had to have the same thing. I mean, I guess
maybe.
Only 1 out of the 2 could see that.
Maybe.
I believe. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know about the actual level of the
partial
sightedness in this film, of whether the actress is fully or partially actually sighted within the film.
Maybe
but
we should have researched.
It does add a unique element to this film.
Yes,
not the dong.
Not the dong. So after that kind of impromptu dong discussion, I will advise you that this is the explicit, spoiler-filled episode on Bring Her Back. We did do a spoiler-free edition, so you know, if you've yet to see the film and you want to know our initial thoughts, go and check out that. We'll be discussing the film in full detail, in its full glory, to keep it dong themed. I will use this opportunity before we get stuck in to remind you to scroll up and just double check that you're hitting that subscribe button. Every subscribe helps the show grow, and every positive review helps the show grow as well. So make sure you leave one.
I'll just say, as I haven't researched it, Sora Wong, who plays Piper, is, as I believed was the case, is visually impaired.
Okay.
She has no vision in her right eye and only 5% vision in her left eye.
Oh wow!
So fair play for the.
Yeah, it's gonna be real.
It does add it just is one. I'm glad that they actually cast someone who is not try to have which can be the case. So,
yeah, it can be.
The guy who plays Daredevil, I mean, he's not really blind. So,
No.
So go and rip him apart. You destroy his life.
I was about to say, whoever his name
He
is.
is playing a comic book character who can swing through the air, but I
draw the line.
I draw the line.
Able to see.
But it does add a really interesting element to this film.
What kind of general consensus has been pretty positive regarding the film. We saw a Cineworld secret screening, as they call it.
I was meant to start the last episode with that, and I kept forgetting what it was.
You did. I noticed.
I still didn't. We had to stop. We restarted the episode because I still couldn't remember, and then I still didn't say it, and I just kind of went with it.
Yeah, you just vibe with it. It's like jazz.
I just enjoy giving behind the scenes of that. They're major fuck ups.
There are, but
I'm on a bit of a roll recently. I swear the last couple of episodes we've done, every time we've had to restart the opening.
You have.
For ages we never really restart or redo anything.
No,
last probably 3 or 4 episodes, I swear I've literally every time I've just been like, no, we need to start again.
Well, that's the difficulty with starting it, you know. The pressure's all on you. I've just got to say, and me, Robbie, and then let you go, you know. I think, you know, this is I thought just to kind of go into the general vibe of the film, because this is what hit me when we were doing the spoiler free episode, and it kind of struck me as Speak No Evil meets Skeleton Key. I don't know if you got that vibe as well.
I've seen neither of those films.
Okay, well, that's...
so I know of Speak No Evil.
Yeah, so Speak No Evil is obviously about...
Wait, is that the James McAvoy remake?
Yeah, the James
original,
McAvoy. Yeah.
You know,
Either one is your...
And
yours.
Skeleton Key... Is Skeleton Key not there?
Skeleton Key was...
Is that the Kate Hudson film?
It's the Kate Hudson film.
Yeah.
In which...
I did not think that film looked good anyway from a trailer, but is it any good? I don't know.
I mean, I watched it about 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, and it was basically this film. It was...
I remember that one being quite badly reviewed though, so I'm guessing that this is like a well done version of that film.
Yeah, but it was effectively like this, you know, this old woman gets this young woman to be a carer for her husband, and then they effectively switch the souls around. So the young woman then ends up in the oldies. The oldies end up in the young woman and her boyfriend. They go off and live a happy ever after life, and the oldies just die with the souls of the Kate Hudson and her boyfriend in them. So it was kind of yeah, spoilers for a Kate Hudson film that nobody was ever going to watch. And that's the kind of vibe I got from this film. You know, it was and that's it struck me as a bit of an interesting mashup between the two of them.
Yeah,
you get this kind of character who is, you know, this villainous character who has this strange charisma. I know you mentioned about kind of Kathy Bates's Anne Wilkes, and there is a bit of that James McAvoy as whatever the character's name in that, where they're almost so kind of charismatic, and so there's a bit of like an oddballness to them. Yeah. And at first you meet them and you're like, they're just a bit eccentric and they're just a bit weird. But then as the film goes on, you're kind of like, actually, there's something really sinister here. And you could see that they're always like a move ahead, and they're playing the long game.
It does. I mean, I think these are one of the... I think these are the roles that, to be honest, quite a lot of actors, I think, are getting drawn into these horror roles more recently, actually, where they are getting the chance to kind of flex the muscle to be like... I think it's one of the interesting areas of horror at the moment for a lot of more well-known actors to get into, be like they're almost the main focal point of the film, and they get to really like either go off the hinge or they get to go that. But I think it's one of those things where you can see the difference between like really strong actors and ones that are like maybe just are a bit like don't quite fully get the source material, because when they really pull it off, there's that weird mix between the insanity but also still having some kind of grounding to it, kind of thing, which James McAvoy, for instance, is really good at doing.
James McAvoy was the man.
I haven't seen that one, but I have seen him in like Split and things like that, and he has a really good balance, you know, where it goes completely mad towards the end of that film, but he still has this weird balance that kind of makes it still feel like almost as if this shouldn't feel believable, but you've made it work, kind of thing. And there's a lot of actors, you know, like there was I haven't actually watched it yet, but I know like Hugh Grant gives a very strong performance in Heretic.
Yeah, that was really good.
You know, and we just watched, you know, I'm not saying he's the same cat, but Jai Courtney in Dangerous Animals, where you've got this kind of one character where it's like if that wasn't good, if that was too over the top or too thing, it would kind of bring down the whole film if that was, and it has to be a central point. And I think again, Sally Hawkins is, you know, again, even possibly even stronger than a lot of those other actors, you know, where she's got a real focal point, and she goes from this weird, like, straight away when we meet her in this film, is she comes on so strong, and she comes on so thing, and you could be like, yeah, but you also know people that come across like that, like, oddly over the top caring, like, you're almost like, you really seem to care, but you almost feel uncomfortable, because like, you're a bit too forward.
We've just met,
you're a bit too like all over. Like you're literally like we've been in here for a second and you're taking pictures of us and you're like going all over us. You're already making weird like jokes or inappropriate jokes. You're talking about people that were like we kind of only don't really know them that well. And it's that kind of feeling of a kind of you already straight away get a weird like. She's going to be a bit unhinged.
Oh yeah, straight off the bat, But I guess it's the difficulty when you have a film which has quite small casts. Dangerous Animals is a good example. Very small kind of prominent cast in it, and the same with Speak No Evil, very small cast.
Yeah.
And with this, you only really have the four main central characters. One of them largely non-verbal for 80-90% of the film.
Yeah.
So you almost, you have to get strong performances out of these people, and all three of them brought something different to it. Piper. I'm not suggesting that Sora Wong as Piper was the weakest of them, but she played more of a kind of a back role in the film.
Yeah.
I felt you had very much two opposing forces vying for her. You had Bill Barrett as Andy, who was who's a kind of older stepbrother, quite a traumatized individual, but still there for her. And then you've got Sally Hawkins as Laura, who's really quite villainous, and like you said, such a great, strange, oddball, charismatic performance. She makes the character so kind of detestable, and so you root against her so much. However, she never feels like comic book villain. She kind of does feel human.
She doesn't feel like she falls into like the Disney princess kind. That kind of, you can have that kind of
like Gal
the
Gadot
wicked
with an
stepmother or something like that, kind of like those kind of parts. No, she never feels like she goes into that element of it.
No, she kind of stays. I don't want to say like you understand what she's doing and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, mate. Yeah. But you can kind of empathize. You can kind of get it. In its weird,
I think it has a true.
logic.
It has a. This film has a true kind of establishment of like, I think maybe what grief could do to you.
Yeah,
like it could really drive you to these weird kind of the weird kind of supernatural things that she is drawn to in order to somewhat try to keep her daughter's memory alive or bring her back.
Bring her back. One would say to bring her back.
What to bring her back? And I also think one of the more like interesting things with these kind of things, and it's one of those things that can make it. It can also make it a hard film to watch at times, because you've got obviously this strong focus on this family and things like that. You get quite a nice relationship between Andy and Piper, and you kind of don't want that to be broken up. But the second they step into the house, and before they've even met her, you've already got the idea that Laura is not that keen on the idea of Andy.
Yeah.
And he kind of feels it straight away when she's very full on to Piper and very kind of detached from Andy.
Yeah.
And, it links with his past trauma, but everything she does, I think is what makes it both more interesting, but also makes you feel things that you're like, no, he can't do that, but I kind of wish he would do this kind of thing, where with her character, with Laura, like when she does certain things, you're always like, why is she doing this? So like there's a scene that follows on from the funeral of their parents where, let's get hammered.
Yeah.
And she's getting drunk and stuff like that. But the whole time I was thinking like, how is she going to twist this into something that's going to be Andy shouldn't have let her do this?
Yeah.
I was thinking the whole time like Piper's going to get far too much drink, far too thing, but somehow she's going to make it seem like she did nothing and actually Andy was the one that kind of hammered her with drinks, even though he's the one that's worried and she's not. She's telling her to drink more and more and more, like to this, girl. So you're just there, like, how's she gonna twist this into it? And that bit doesn't. She never, not with that section anyway. She never like makes that into everything. But everything feels like she wants Andy out of the way, and she knows that Andy is only a few months away from being able to get like full custody, possibly of his sister. So straight from the bat that she's already mentioned it, and she's already thinking about ways to do it. And there's no question that straight away that she is the villainous character.
Oh, straight.
It is. We're not trying to hide the fact because it's such an obvious, twist to play out. But what makes this film kind of uncomfortable to go through at certain points, and not even talking about the gore or the horror, is when you've got this kind of character. There is a large part of you throughout the film the way you just want Andy to just go fucking
just batter her.
Just you know, there's obviously that really one tense scene when it's about where she literally whacked Piper in the eye, which is really like fuck. Okay,
which is funny. I found it funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's this, and that's
this
it. Like
whack.
There are these moments. There are these moments of just like black comedy in it, and I felt like that was one of them. And I don't know whether it was like. It was supposed to come off as a bit more shocking, or whether it was supposed to be like, oh, that's quite funny. But she's just stood watching it, and then she just fucking pelts her, and I fucking like laugh for a second, and then like you know what she's doing, and it's a horrible thing to do, but I was just like, it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, but it's that deranged like setup, like literally like can of deodorant over like spraying it all over herself, and you're kind of there like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, why is she like oddly obsessed and things like that. So, but it is, I'll admit, when she walked into that room, her smacking her in the eye was not the thing that came to my mind, because she was stood over her with, obviously, she just sprayed herself. But that wasn't the first thing in my head to be like, she's literally just going to smack her in the face.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way it just suddenly, like, the movement is so, it's just like, poof, like, and it's a proper thwack kind of sound, like, that comes up, you're like, oh shit. Okay. But then, following that, when they're all interrogating each other, and literally you're just there, like, you kind of, like, want him to literally, like, because, like, she's making a big show of it so that Piper is going to think, you know, that obviously that her brother is actually, like, a bad, you know, person. That her brother is someone who actually beats people up and hit her last night. All linking to when he'd done it in his past, and mentioned when he was a kid, which is more, again, related to his own abuse of why that happened.
Yeah.
And not being able to understand why he was being abused and his sister never kind of was abused. Not in like a, you know, not in the bad way. Like, he knows that that's a bad thing to say, but it's more in a kind of a child not understanding while he's being treated differently than someone else. And you kind of want Andy to literally like do something to her and be like, well, you know,
she deserves it.
You know what I mean? He can do this, and she can make a big show of it. But there's also a part of you that wanted Andy to just talk to your sister. Don't draw into her little thing, because she's trying to draw you in. She wants you to do this kind of thing, and that's uncomfortable viewing for a lot of people. Where they would, I think some people struggle with those kind of things, because not just the themes of it, which obviously can be quite triggering for people, but just the whole, you know, when you feel like you're out of control in something. And I'm sure everyone's had it in their life when they've had a moment when they're like, for fuck's sake, like, I've kind of really would just rather, you know,
I'd rather not deal
I feel
with
like
fucking shit.
I'm not going down any line of violence, but really right now I would love it if there was a violent option to this, where I could just like walk away scot-free, but I can take the violent option. You know, or a moment when someone feels so uncomfortable, so cornered by something or trapped. And this film really plays into that feeling with Andy, where he is literally being like, she has found multiple ways, including pissing on him. Not literally. I mean literally, but not a lot. Like, not, she doesn't stand on top of it, piss. But you know,
she might as well.
This is some of those like really manic things that Sally Hawkins has to kind of do in the film, that like kind of show a commitment to the fact that she just, you know, a scene where she just walks in the bathroom, takes off her knickers, and literally just pees over a pot,
squats it apart,
and then literally pours it on his lap, so he thinks that he's wet in the bed. That she's literally making psychosis in him.
Yeah, it's fucking mental. Yeah, you know, but it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's really well done. You know, all of this thing, and as with like kind of like, it does open with the whole father dead in the shower. It's kind of that opening. I
mean, Talk to Me was a bleak film as well, and this carries on the bleak tone throughout a lot of it.
Yeah.
One thing I will do, and I do respect the, you know, Danny and Michael Philippou as filmmakers, is whilst I, you know, and I'll touch on it a little bit later, there's elements of predictability throughout the film. There's also kind of stuff that's quite uncompromising, and I respect that they make the choices that I feel like other people would be like, oh, we can't do that. For instance, like there's the scene, and this is just to kind of skip much later, but it's when Andy brings the social worker, and they find out about the little boy Connor Bird, and how that's Oliver, who's got the soul in him or whatever, and you're kind of like, fuck, it's not going to go right. The social worker's going to get killed some way, and it's another scene that kind of made me laugh when she just fucking plows her down, and Andy gets hit as well, and you're kind of thinking to yourself like, well, Andy's kind of the main character, like, so they're not going to kill Andy surely. And he's quite a likeable character. You're rooting for him. Yeah. And then, she drowns him in the puddle. And it's a bold choice, because you're just...
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but I respect it,
Well, it is. I think after Talk to Me, I somewhat expected choices of, after kind of the main, like, killed off in the Talk to Me. I expected there to be some kind of... We're not holding back just because the audience feels emotion for this character that these people are going to die. And it all happens in quite short. Like, that whole scene is really fantastic. That whole, like, battle throughout the house, the social worker, you somewhat feels like, oh, actually, like, there are parts of it that are not the anticipated. As I mentioned on the way out, I could hear the majority of everything the people behind us were saying.
You could, yeah. One of the times it's good to be half
which
deaf,
was a bugbear to me.
Yeah.
But talking in the cinema, if you want to have those discussions, then
don't do that there.
But at the same time, on the plus side for being on the podcast, it gave me several points where I could hear someone else like what was their reactions, and I heard them literally the standard person listening to that kind of. Me saying that we're above the standard in terms of horror.
We are gods.
We've got gods of this.
We're gods amongst men.
One day in the near future, when everything's been destroyed, they'll just find this podcast and assume that we were some kind of higher being upon the community.
Yeah, we were a beacon. And
the horror was the only film that exists.
That was. And the only surviving episode is Death Race 2000. And they remade that film in our image. Go and check the episode out if you haven't. That's a cheap plug for about a year-old episode.
It appeared on multiple episodes accidentally.
Yeah.
But I could hear the people behind me talking, literally, like in this scene. Again, we're way later in the film here, but still, in this scene, we have the social worker, and literally they were like, "Oh no, she's heading for the stairs. She's going to get pushed down the stairs." And it's like, it actually cuts straight outside us, and it just goes, no, we're not having the whole, we don't need to do the rest of the chase with the house, because the point is they're meant to go and see what's in the little shed, whatever we call it, little garage out the back or whatever.
Or greenhouse, whatever she's got going on.
And obviously in there you've got Ollie, who is literally devouring, and to go into another point of the daughter, the Kathy who's been in the freezer, and literally devouring her skin. And that's more of the shocking thing, but when we get to that car scene, it is, and we'll come back to more of the Ollie Kathy, but when we get to that car scene, it literally is like, they've made it out to the thing. Okay, so it felt like it was maybe going for more of a. There was a part of me that was weirdly thinking like, they seem to be going down a different route with this. Like, how are they going to get around this? And then just sort of whack with that car, and you're like, holy fuck!
That was awesome.
And it is brutal. And again, it's actually not as graphic as actually like she gets slammed, and you see kind of the woman get onto the hood and get slammed into the thing, but it's not as like. It's not. There are weirdly choices here where. Some things that feel like they need to be shown in order to show the real reaction of it is there. Some things that are purely for just like killing people off, and weirdly it actually doesn't zoom in on like her head getting smashed against another car or something. It very much shows it in an oddly natural way, and the main bit you're seeing is the body on the ground and Andy lying in the puddle is mainly what we focus on.
Yeah,
everything else is in the background. We've just got him struggling there, and like again. At that point, it's like, well, there's nowhere good you could go. It's just where they're going. It's just where they're going with this now. And to be fair, my mind didn't even go to drowning him in the puddle. No. I literally thought she was going to come over and like snap his neck or stamp on his head or something like that.
I thought run him over again.
Or go back over him again. Yeah, I thought went to much more brutal kind of deaths, and I think it was that weird that the brutality in this film comes more from where people have got no control. I'd say, where we've got the Ollie character, for instance. That's when it feels horribly like brutal from the Ollie character. The rest of them, she's almost doing stuff, but she's actually like Laura is actually somewhat doing things like as if she really doesn't actually want to kill these people. She's doing it for a purpose. She doesn't want to be overly brutal with these things. I know she just mowed someone down with a car.
Yeah.
But that, like, that's like of a desperation, like the best you can do.
Drowning him in a puddle is pretty fucking brutal. I'd rather have my neck snapped.
It is
if I could choose between
brutal,
the two.
but I think weird. I don't know. I see drowning as a lesser than like.
I don't. That's fucking terrifying.
She could have walked over and literally stabbed his head into the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in my head, she could have gone way more brutal. I know drowning sounds horrible.
It's fucking rotten.
But drowning is also just like.
I don't want to drown slowly. I don't want to be drowning fucking slowly in a puddle. That's what, just snap my neck, mate. Get me gone. You know.
Well, I mean, snapping is quicker. But I don't know. To me, it seemed like a lighter version of what could have actually been his death, kind of thing. I feel like there's many ways that she could have literally like beaten him to a pulp or something like that.
Yeah, but
that this film, like, some people might have assumed would be the case, that they're going to go, oh, they've gone so brutal. But I still think most of the like kind of brutal are mainly related to the body horror of Ollie.
Oh yeah.
Like the stuff that happens with him, not the whole, every single part. You know, that comes. Every single scene is not like just full of like loads of gore. There's probably, if you spread it out across, there's not actually tons of it. It's just moments of like kind of bloody horror, mainly of the transformation of the Ollie character.
Yeah, which I'm still kind of at a point where I might on a rewatch I might kind of enjoy it a bit more. But I said in the the spoiler free one, I've just never been a massive fan of the kind of creepy kids angle, you know, and for a large part of the film I was just kind of like, like he's okay, like I get what they're doing with it, and the whole like those shots of him stood in the pool and kind of like being a bit weird and eating the fly and stuff like that. Yeah, I was like, nah, I wasn't really a big fan of that. But as the scene with the knife happened, which was fucking rotten, home dentistry. Yeah. And then as he kind of, I guess, became more corrupted, I guess you'd say, more taken over, possessed. Yeah. I felt I did enjoy it a bit better. I still wasn't 100% into it, but I thought it was a little bit better done, especially the transformation, and just like the elements of the body horror that came from him was so fucking wince-inducing. Yeah,
I mainly quite enjoyed it, and I'm not always a big fan of it either, to be honest. I find the child horror thing can be quite big, but I felt it fairly. I don't know. I found it fairly, for the first part, it was pretty subdued. I mean, we only see him every once in a while kind of pop up, so I found this thing kind of eerily creepy just about the kid anyway. The way he looked. In this film looked kind of a creepy kind of thing. You knew there was more to it. I mean, and to be fair, that's one thing that wasn't, like, in my head I was partially like, what exactly is this? Have you brought back your daughter? You're saying it's Ollie, but is that actually a girl? Yeah. At one point I was like, is this actually like how they like resurrected her or things like that? Because I wasn't quite sure what angle. Obviously we get the quite brutal kind of weird opening scenes that I think are quite unsettling. That is one unsettling thing that happened. You got those scenes like the Russian scenes at the beginning, with the like hanging bodies and the naked people and making the rings and people being like attacked, and you get more of that later on when you find more, which gets really disturbing, like full on like chewing apart people's faces and blood pouring out. Really brutal kind of scenes. Those are some of the most brutal scenes in the whole film, is the video footage. All of that like found footage that she has of, obviously, as if she's been following this supernatural cult that we get with Laura, where she's had this in order to possess Ollie the way that he's been possessed. Yeah. That is all really disturbing to watch. It right from the beginning, we get, that is the first shots we get in the film, and it's really like, what the hell's going on here? And later on, the more you get, I mean, those scenes when people are literally being like eaten, their like heads are being eaten and pulled apart, and weird, like, are really brutal. And I think some people would find that extremely disturbing. And I think some people would find this whole Ollie part really disturbing. I mean, I don't want to gloss past the thing that. I mean, Andy handing that knife. Like
the fucking idiot.
I mean, that was like, there are many parts of this film where I think like for the most part, I think a lot of the logic is somewhat close enough to be like it's passable. Even there are things that people could question about. Oh, the social worker. Why did you go to the house with the boy without having someone else present? But at the same time, it's all kind of quite clarified. To her, Laura is a friend and has been. She's known her for like 20 odd years. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's a different situation. It's not going to like some person you have
no idea random crap.
So she's not expecting anything. So there's ways to justify it. But what I can't justify is Andy, who barely knows this kid, and decides that the best thing to do is chop up melon and hand him melon on the end of a knife, and then give him said knife when he obviously takes it in the most erratic way ever. And decides to go, that's
fucking crap.
That's fine. I'll leave this weird kid who can't actually say a word to me, and I don't know what his mental state is, and I'm just gonna let him have that big blade. Just the fact that he has it. But oh my god, this is probably one of the most wince-inducing like scenes that I've seen in a horror film recently.
Yeah,
the way that kid is going at that knife and just chewing down, and the way the teeth crack and crunch, and
gross.
If you've got anything to do with your teeth or dentistry,
which I have,
this,
which I'm fucking terrified of.
Yeah, and the way you can, and this like the practical effects here are fucking phenomenal. Like if it is fully practical, I don't know, but whatever that, like the way that he's chewing round that knife and it's going deeper and deeper back, and then Andy's trying to pull it out and the teeth starts to crack around it, and you see that teeth crack, and it's like, oh my god, the sounds, the effects, the sound editing you hear, oh my god, it is brutal. If you want someone to have like nightmares, this is a scene. This is one of the. To be honest, I can't think of a better scene recently that I've seen recently that is like stands out like that scene. The way it made me go, fuck no.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. It's horrible. It's really truly like when you think again, it's a kid. It's like this is happening to. The thing that separates it partially is because this kid seems so otherworldly, super like weird, like out there that you're almost like, is it a kid? What are you? Kind of thing. You just seem so unnatural. But when you break it down, and especially when again, like jump later, but when we find out actually it's a kidnapped kid, and actually that kid's still in there, and you get little things that are going through there. And this is the most brutal kidnapping kind of like outside of like an actual like murdering or like worse, like not worse, but equally worse of like living but still having things done to you. This is like full on like major disgusting brutal trauma that's happening to this kid with no control over it. And to delve more into some of those scenes, I mean the scene we get more obviously following this, the trauma that Andy's gone through with all this stuff, and like this just adds on to it. But the scenes later on when he is literally like when he comes in and when she finds him and he's literally been eating,
he's just fucking scratching everything.
She comes back and he's literally he's not drinking milk. He's literally taking a bite out the side of a thing of milk. He is eating his way through the kitchen. He's eating multiple things around him. We already know that he's taking a chomp out of the cat at one point. The cat's still living.
The cat's good,
but the cat was bleeding everywhere because he's taking a chomp, and now. Whenever he chomps on meat of whatever it is, he seems to absorb some of the soul or the thing. There's mention of like spirits or souls being within people and still living within people and like being part of them. And whenever he starts sounding like the cat, or he starts sounding like Andy later on, or chicken, So we're getting like matches of sounds based on what he's eating, kind of thing. It's a weird, but it's an interesting kind of concept. It has a kind of. I think it adds an interesting element to it. It's not, again, nothing is really fully, which I'm fine with. I don't really like over exposition of these things. I think it works enough and I don't need a full explanation.
No, or me.
I think it's one of those stronger parts is the fact that they don't feel, and they had it talked to me as well, to be fair, but they don't really feel a need to over explain what this is.
No.
It's causing things. I think there was a little bit more of an exposition scene maybe in Talk to Me. I think one of the souls that was taken over or something.
But I feel like with I feel like it also never fully leans into supernatural, like as you do get the scene where there's the lines of chalk or whatever it is, the protection circle, And when Oliver steps out of it, he's fucking, he's screaming in his way.
And his body's like changing, and you've got elements of like blisters appearing.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
But that's probably the most that it gets, because you see this weird Russian footage, but you could another angle that they could have gone with this film is just that it's a extremely desperate, grieving mother who believes that this will bring her daughter back.
Yeah.
But there is actually no evidence that any of this is actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see any. I'm thinking of like Hereditary, where you see the signs that like Charlie is Pazuzu's vessel, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't see much of that. Obviously, you do a little bit with Oliver, but you could also, think that he's just extremely fucking mentally ill because this woman's been,
I think if it wasn't for like literal like echoing of the voices,
as we get later on,
if you took the rest, you literally could have explained this in an oddly like more of a mental kind of way than a different way. Yeah, I can totally see how that could have worked.
It's a kind of a grounded approach.
But that, to be fair, that for me is what I actually like about it.
I
like the fact that it's very grounded to this idea, and it doesn't overdo it.
Yeah,
it keeps it very much more about Laura being this focal point and this like both disturbing journey that she's on, and also somewhat in some ways the grief and emotional journey she's on. And the same with Andy and with Piper. Like that still stays the main thing, which is why Ollie is kind of only there at points to kind of serve parts of the plot, which I guess again is why you could leave it or take some of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene when Ollie starts, when he takes a bite out of Laura when she comes back.
Yeah.
You're like, good, come up,
can have a little bite.
Have a little taste on your own, your own medicine there, love. But then when he starts chomping on the desk at the side of the table, and you're seeing like the splinters go into his mouth, and you're seeing like thing, and again like a bit of tooth is left on the side again, and you can still see where that knife's been like in his mouth, and then he starts going at himself and start pulling chunks of his own arm off bit by bit, and you're just like, holy fuck. Another the one other element of Ollie's kind of thing, outside of the whole like, we get the implication that later on, we've already said about Andy's like death, that he's eaten parts of Andy to take Andy's
soul or whatever.
And you get the nice scenes of chewing on frozen Kathy's face. Yeah. The daughter. But the other one is towards the end. There are two parts of the argument. One is the fact that he has that huge distended stomach, where he's obviously just been eating and eating and eating, and it has that kind of the same way you have that kind of idea of when people eat in like countries where they've had very little food and then get food and you get that additional bloating and that additional thing. He's got that whole thing as if he's like, God, what's he been eating? A chicken, a cat, a face, whatever he wants to eat. But I do like the very end shot as well, where we actually get a weird moment of... It's weird, it's gone through, but we actually get a moment of almost hope, where actually we get, obviously following Piper's like escape, but we get Ollie's actually, where it's actually, he's still in there, and he's actually come through it, and actually once he's got outside the circle, he's been almost released from whatever possession was holding him in that circle. We get that release scene where it's actually like, my name is Charlie Bird.
Connor
Bird. My name's Connor Bird, and it's just like, it's weird that you actually get a moment of actually this child has been released. I'm gonna be traumatized like hell.
He's gonna be cooked.
Gonna need some dentistry work like crazy.
Oh,
but actually,
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking they're gonna get that kid fucking dentures.
Yeah, that kid's just those teeth are just coming out. I think.
Yeah, they're gone.
But at least it's like he leaves with his life in some kind of way. So that's a kind of a weirdly nice element, I guess.
Yeah.
That Andy's lost, but the younger ones are actually somewhat saved in the end. Weirdly,
yeah. And that's the kind of thing that I wasn't a fan of, is that I felt like Talk to Me was quite similar, where it had a relatively kind of like predictable end, and I feel like this film kind of did as well. However, I feel like there wasn't really kind of much resolution. Like, there was the bare bones of what was going on. You know, you found Piper was safe, Connor was safe, and you assume that Laura is arrested. And it's all beautifully shot and it looks amazing. And there's that great kind of aerial view that's, you know, of Laura with Kathy's corpse in the swimming pool, and it's really good. But then it just kind of, the credits hit, and I was kind of thinking, it felt as if like there could have been another few minutes of just resolutions, just for the characters, just what happens, where do they go? You know?
I mean, you get Piper with the message from her brother.
Yeah,
when she gets that, we don't know where she goes. We know that Connor's been saved by the police because the police are all there.
Yeah, we know that he's saved.
You know, we got the dead bodies in the thing.
But that's what I mean. It's it's the very bare bones of like. It's as if someone's telling you this.
It's not the worst example where we've seen it just coming to an end and be like, you barely actually even tried to. This film. You just went credits.
It's not the worst example, but it's like, you know, it's like, imagine somebody's telling you a great story, and then they're just like, oh yeah, and then that's it, mate. Yeah. You know, like, see you later. That for me, it felt like they have this tribute to their friend at the end.
Oh, they do, yeah.
And I was kind of like, there's not any more scenes, and then there's the credits. And I was like, it feels like there's another like 5 minutes here that they've just cut. You know, it felt very abrupt to me.
It felt quite natural to me. I felt it was quite a natural ending. Like, I thought, I didn't really know where else they were going to go with it, to be honest. Apart from just showing Piper, I don't know what she did the next day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like it came to kind of with her looking up at the flights and back to her brother's thing about every plane is a soul leaving kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was okay for an ending. I didn't feel like I was shortchanged by then. I thought it kind of, as I said, I felt that the story kind of naturally kind of flowed through, and I felt like it didn't in the third act. As I said in the spoiler free, I didn't feel like in the third act that it actually tried to overdo it or go too big. I felt like it kind of played with just the characters that were there, and it kind of brought them to that thing. I mean, there's a little bit of an odd that could be confusing around the whole, you know, they're in the pool and she's trying to drown her, and it, you know, you're thinking that she's going to drown Piper, and, you know, I mean, I guess again you're hoping that this is not the way it's going to go, and actually, you know, and it doesn't go that way. The whole part of how the body transfers with the thing, I mean, that's just a question mark of what's, you know, whatever's going to be, how that thing makes it so that she drowns her and now she's going to bring her back in Kathy's body. I'm not quite sure how that was going to work, but, you know, it plays somewhat like interestingly. I mean, I guess the one thing that did wasn't so predictable is I partially just thought that Ollie when left in the pool with Thingy was just going to like start eating Thingy again.
Yeah.
Laura. I thought she was just going to go for Laura.
Yeah,
I thought we were just going to have a goblin, like the scene was just going to be blood pouring from because it had like an image of her daughter like in the pool with blood pouring out.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was going to have Ollie go up and, I don't know, just rip out her neck or something, and it just ends with her like blood pouring. But instead we obviously get the scene of her and Kathy in the pool together. But, I feel like that could have been an equally kind of just a slowly blood
a
kind
similar
of
ending,
scene, you know, similar idea, but in that way. But, you know, each one works in its own way. But I don't know. I was okay with like those kind of elements of it. I don't know. I was expecting to have more problems and find this more of a slog or overly slow story than I actually found it to be.
Yeah.
I did say that, I think in maybe different situations, I probably would dismiss this film as different than it was. I think this is the kind of film, if I was watching it at home, I wouldn't have paid full attention.
Yeah, so, I feel like you need to be you need to
sit and watch it kind of thing to truly take it. It's like watching, like, if you're going to sit down and watch a drama, and then you're like that, it's, you know, I've had that before, you know, we're saying like you're just watching through like things like that, and you're just watching like, Liam Neeson's doing something.
Yeah, Liam Neeson's...
Where'd that little girl go? There's a red coat in there. They shoved that on earlier. What happened?
Yeah. Liam Neeson killed someone. It's just gotta...
Is this not Taken too?
Yeah. Liam Neeson's daughter's been taken. That's all I need to know at this point.
Why is it in black and white?
Yeah.
Are those Nazis?
Yeah, those Nazis.
I thought we were...
I thought this was Taken 3.
What the fuck's going on?
The one where he gets taken.
I normally just scroll through at Liam Neeson films. I'm very confused by what's happening.
Unless it's his scenes in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
In that case, the phone goes down.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon gets the respect he deserves.
I mean,
you know?
I must put my phone down to shed a tear every time that he dies.
Every time Qui-Gon Jinn dies, he was the man.
Yeah.
I had Qui-Gon's lightsaber. Toy replica, obviously.
Yeah,
I didn't inherit the actual one, you know.
You didn't take it from Liam Neeson.
Yeah, or from Qui-Gon.
You wouldn't get a chance to take it from Qui-Gon.
No,
or Liam Neeson.
We've learned that you don't take things from Liam Neeson. You know, not his daughter, not him. You know. Anything else to say about before we go off on some Liam Neeson base tangent or Don Knotts?
I was going to say I actually weirdly I don't think, surprisingly, because these supernatural films I normally have a lot that I don't like, but you know, apart from some questionable kind of parts about how some of that actually makes sense, I think it's one of those things if you try to look into it too much, it will kind of crumble a little bit. But generally, taking this as more of a kind of your kind of slightly supernatural, but more kind of about the horror. Somewhat comes more from the people and her, and Laura, and a performance and a great performance of Sally Hawkins. I think a lot of that is what really makes this film strong, and I think a lot of the characterization. This is one of those horror films that you can see getting awards because it's not actually like mega. It's got horrible scenes, but it's not mega completely on all in on the horror at times. Yeah. You could take some of this as more of like I said, like a Misery, which is almost more bordering on thriller than that kind of more thrillerish kind of vibe. And there's a lot of those elements here which all play, where she's doing things in the background to make Andy go more and more, insane or think that there's something wrong with him when actually he's okay. She's just making him feel that way, and using, Piper against it. So generally, I was gonna say I haven't got many negative things to say. I think it was really good. I mean, I don't know. It might be on my top of this year so far, to be honest.
Yeah, I was kind of I was debating where this would sit for me because I had a lot more pros than I did cons. I went into it not really knowing what to expect, knowing that I really enjoyed Talk to Me. I still have some kind of stuff with what I felt was the predictability of it. However, I feel like just because I knew where the ride was going doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. A lot of the performances were incredible. The gore and the gross out stuff was great. The ride I thought was really well written. It was really well kind of played and placed out in terms of this kind of like odd game that Laura and Andy are playing against each other, trying to figure each other out, trying to stay one step ahead. I thought that was fantastic. It added a lot of tension to it. I still kind of I feel like the end was rather abrupt, and I would have liked a bit more resolution, but maybe that's just the old Hollywood in me. But yeah, I watched it and I was like, it's not the absolute fucking shit your pants dog shit ending of 28 years later, where that final 2 minutes just shit in my eyes. And I was like, in terms of the films for me, is it this or is it Nosferatu at the very top? I kind of feel like maybe Nosferatu just edges it out for me. And Nosferatu just edges for me, just edges me a bit more.
Nosferatu can just stay back in the pile.
Yeah, you weren't a fan. You won't be. You preferred Wolfman, I believe. It was a rather bold choice.
There were elements of Wolfman. That's only because a lot of Nosferatu I didn't actually rate very highly at all. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I really dislike.
I would have to read
Bill Skarsgård performance.
I loved that, man. I was doing the Nosferatu voice for months after, and I would probably still be doing it again now I've rethought about it. Anything else before we send them home happy?
No. That's about it. I enjoyed the substance over style, which is the opposite of the one you just mentioned.
Oh, look at that! He has to wound me as we're around the end. We've been amicable for this.
Yeah.
We're not always agreeing on films. We've got one film coming up that we did not agree on. So if you want to hear that episode where we are at each other's throats like wild beasts,
might be related to what happened in the summer.
It might be what happened to what you did last summer, because I know something that you did last summer. I know what you did. And I know what happened last summer, to give a very cryptic clue that nobody will decipher.
You'll never understand.
I still know what you may have done last summer. That's what I would call that. Then make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. That was a rather dog shit plug. I will admit, more dog shit than usual. Which is why you should hit that subscribe button, because why not? We're really selling it.
We're just selling it.
We're just selling it.
You've heard that big plug. You can't bring back that time.
Yeah, you can't take back the time, but you can get future episodes as soon as they're released. Who wouldn't want that? And come and let us know your thoughts on Bring Her Back. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. What I will say is, don't be watching weird Russian videos and learning how to bring people back. I don't know if it works. It didn't work in this instance, and I think it's anything that the Russians do in weird VHS format should not be replicated. Just leave that behind the Iron Curtain. And we will see you next week. Take care. Goodbye.